This is a big topic right here. High school football under scrutiny this morning following the death of a player last week and injuries which sent two other players to the hospital over the weekend.
So Xavier McLean, a sophomore at Linden High School, will be laid to rest this Thursday after he died from injuries sustained at a football game earlier this month.
Xavier's death and the injuries of those two other players shining the light on the risks involved in playing football in high school. Joining us this morning, Dr. Krystofiak, who specializes in sports medicine, to discuss the dangers of youth sports. I know you go by Dr. K, so good to have you here. Thank you very much to talk about this. And
good morning. Thank you for having me.
You know, Doctor, let's begin because Xavier McLean's death suffered a traumatic brain injury when he was running a kickoff return. So how often, I guess, do you see these kinds of injuries happening, specifically when it comes to high school football?
It's a great question. So for high school football athletes, very specifically, concussion is one of the more common injuries that we typically see in the high school setting. But with regards to an unfortunate outcome, such as a fatality, that is on the rarer side.
Okay, over the weekend, though, we did see two high school football players that were sent to the hospital with a serious neck injury, the other one with a knee injury that will sideline him for the rest of the season. And these are young teens. So what kind of impact can those injuries have on their overall health down the line?
Any injury from a contact sport can not only just obviously affect the body physically, but also can affect the body mentally. So when we're treating any athlete for any injury, especially for someone who's playing a contact sport, we take all that into consideration, their well-being on and off the field, making sure that they're getting all the support they need to heal physically, but making sure that they're doing well academically. And if they have any struggles behaviorally or mentally because of that, we're also looking at that closely.
Yeah, and of course, you know, these three happening at almost around the same time, right? And that has reignited this conversation about safety on the field. What are you seeing when it comes to other sports? Basketball, soccer, baseball? You know, are you seeing injuries that are as prevalent as you do when it comes to football?
So right now, for at least for football, it seems to have a little bit more of an injury risk of, you know, very specifically for concussion. But when you start to look at other high school sports that are having, you know, an equal amount of female athletes and male athletes, the female athlete has a higher risk of concussion. But when we're talking about other injuries, each sport can have their own unique risks, you know, such as you know, female soccer can have an increased risk in ACL, and female lacrosse can have an increased risk in ACL. So each of the sports in their own subsets do have their own unique risks. But generally, overall, high school sports are safe for student athletes to be playing. There's a really big shift in the last 20, 30 years about awareness of these injuries and identifying them as soon as possible, so they can be cared for and get back to playing in a safe environment.
So two quick questions. So you don't agree with the folks that feel that football should be taken completely out of high school sports?
No, I disagree with that. When we look at the risk overall over the last 30-year time period, the risk of a fatality for these, according to the U.S. National Registry for sudden death in young athletes, it averages about 9 per year, which is definitely way too many. Obviously, the number should be 0.
Yeah.
But there has been a shift in an awareness and prevention, updating of protocols, and making sure that when we see something that has a red flag, that's identified, and that athlete is appropriately triaged and managed.
Which leads me to the second part of my question. Do you feel like maybe they should change the rules maybe in high school sports to prevent some of these fatal injuries?
That's an excellent question. So over a time period, rules have actually been changing. There's been a shift with awareness, but great equipment upgrades, good sport technique, these are all playing in a factor in preventing injuries. And there has been rule changes to football with regarding kickoffs.
Yeah.
And if you look at other sports such as women's soccer, you know, changing in the heading rules when you're a young student athlete. So there have been changes to rules, and I think every year that goes by, there's modifications. So I definitely think that these things should be constantly taken a very close eye with. And I know this is going to be on the radar for some time. And it is definitely, if it's always about the safety of the student athlete. So this will get looked at and things will get
Yeah,
changed if they need to.
unfortunately, it takes an incident like a death to kind of reignite the conversation, because I remember there was a heck of a lot of conversation after Eric LeGrand from Rutgers was paralyzed because of an injury on the field, and that reignited a conversation then. Real quick, because we're almost out of time here, what are you seeing when it comes to concussion-like injuries and brain-related injuries in these athletes later on?
So overall, there's been a few studies that are looking at CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. I think that we're just at the tip of the iceberg on that. So far, I personally have not seen anyone with residual deficit that led to a long-term cognitive issue, but that's definitely something that everyone is looking at in the field of sports medicine and neurology.
All right, Dr. Jason Krystofiak, thanks again for being with us this morning. We appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.